Anthony.
How's it going?
Good, good. Why would companies want to become a media company? What's the benefit to that?
It's actually a good build off of this last conversation around TikTok, and I think the way consumers are engaging with content is changing. Like, we're listening to podcasts like yourselves, and Jason's was here earlier. We're on TikTok kind of scrolling and watching things. That's just like a change that we're seeing in the world. And yet, when we go back into the office from a content marketing perspective, we're shipping blog posts that are optimized for an algorithm in Google versus optimized for humans that are actually trying to learn something. And so the first, I think, problem set is around just content formats evolving, and the B2B kind of team still kind of focused on maybe the last generation of content. But the other challenge behind it is when we do produce often podcasts or TikTok videos or whatever, we're farming them out to what we're kind of calling rented channels. We're farming it out to TikTok, to an algorithm that we don't control. Google, from an SEO perspective, that we don't control. LinkedIn, if anyone's tried including a link on a LinkedIn post, and you see a fraction of the impressions you get if you didn't upload like a native video or something to that end, we can't be building our homes on rented land. And so what media companies do really well is they use these emerging content formats, but they're building an owned audience. They're building a direct relationship with their audience, and by doing so, they get the ability to distribute content directly without the need of an intermediary. B, they get rich engagement data to understand, okay, so which cohorts of my audience are actually interested in these topics or consume content in these formats. And through that data, they can monetize and sell, in the media company cases, premium, subscriptions or event attendance or courses like Chris's business. And of course, for us, SaaS licenses at the end of the day. So I think this is, B2B marketers look fondly at consumer marketers and say, man, that's the fun thing. Like, I want to do what they're doing. And I think what's really interesting is we're now entering a time that not only will it be a great way to build an engaging brand and build a market and build an audience, but fundamentally, in a world where first-party data is the most important currency for marketers, it's actually going to become existential for us to figure out how do we build that direct relationship.
And it's really, really important, and I think it's a great point, because if you're building on a platform, TikTok owns that audience.
That's right.
LinkedIn owns the audience. Facebook owns the audience. So you should own your audience and have that direct connection, not have some middleman in the middle that really owns that relationship.
Exactly right, yeah.
Really smart. And I like that content, that you're putting out something that's not for the algorithm, it's for human consumption.
Yeah.
It's super important, the way that they want to engage. Well, it started pre-revenue with Gainsight, and 100 million. So what do you do as a marketer when you're pre-revenue or early stage revenue, or a marketing department of one, probably in the beginning?
Oh, yeah.
So what are the steps that you take? What does that playbook look like to move from 0 to 1 to 2 to 10 to
Yeah, so in my context, just sharing a bit of maybe empathy with founders in the room, is this was my first marketing job ever, stepping into Gainsight.
Wow.
I'd been in product before and did some BDR, and then went to product, just random, a whole other talk. But I think it starts with understanding your audience, understanding your personas, deeply understanding them, which of course founders have, we've obsessed over this as we're building our products. And by doing so, we're gaining empathy and we're learning about their needs, right? From the marketing perspective, and a lot of that typically comes from the product perspective, and it's driving kind of, feature kind of decision making. But in Gainsight's case, there was this persona that existed called the customer success manager. And we were building software that didn't quite fit into the traditional like Gartner Magic Quadrant type of world. So customer success managers didn't have a platform of choice, and they weren't empowered to actually make a lot of purchasing decisions at the time. And just that name, customer success, there was like a handful of them at Salesforce, but it wasn't this like, I think, widely kind of accepted kind of profession at this point. So I think understanding your persona, and then sort of the first principles thing that we did, being not from trying to be smart or whatever, but just trying to fake it till I made it as a first-time marketer, was just like, how can we radically serve this persona? Our market is young. No one knows what we do. Our product, we got like maybe one or two kind of early stage customers, but we know this customer has pain. This persona has pain. We know that there's a hunger for community and belonging and thought leadership and best practices. So can we as a brand just honestly help facilitate that in an effort to help serve them? And that's what turned into a few early hypotheses around events and content and these things that ended up kind of, paying off.
So is that something that you think was a help or a hindrance, not having that marketing experience / baggage?
I think a help. I don't know. Like I sort of grew up in a world where, professionally, I guess, in which a lot of this shift was happening around content and events and thought leadership. I wasn't going to be the best early marketer to come in and have strong conviction on like Google, AdWords and how to run a paid campaign and all that. So I think it was good, and it was certainly good for Gainsight, given that
Sure.
company did not have product market fit. If we're being honest, they had kind of like persona market fit, if that makes sense. There was like a persona that owned the churn number and didn't have the tools or the voice to make it happen. Or to really be successful. So I think the non-traditional way of building that company from a marketing lens, I think ended up serving the company well.
So how did you turn that into an event?
Yeah.
And really build community around that? I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, this was actually something that sounded a lot more controversial, I think, before COVID. But now it's a little bit easier to make some of these bets. Our first bet was to host a conference, which is not something that I would recommend people probably do, at least in the traditional sense. We went to a meetup for customer success. There was a small group on LinkedIn, and they would meet up around the Bay Area. And it wasn't fancy. It was like pizza and beer, whatever kind of a thing. But there was this like feeling when we walked in of like, oh my gosh, I'm finally around other people that think the way I think. They're going through the same challenges I'm going through. And for B2B, to have something that palpable was something we couldn't ignore. So we said, what if we did that same event that they just did, but we just closed a Series A, so we can put a little bit of capital behind it. And so we picked a date. We somehow talked Jeffrey Moore into keynoting. Off of like a friends and family discount. We used Jeffrey to convince Aaron Levy from Box because we knew they had a relationship. And then we just went to everyone we knew and said, we're hosting an event all about the customer success industry. Jeffrey Moore and Aaron Levy are going to be there. Do you want to speak? And we built out this like crazy agenda for a company, again, that had like 12 people and 4 customers at the time or something to that end. So again, pretty controversial, pretty like how practical is that in today's terms? I think it's even easier now because with virtual, we can test this hypothesis. We can say, can we host a digital event and leverage the same tactics? We get like one speaker by just like calling in some favors, like asking investors, like flexing the network, and use that as an anchor to then test the hypothesis. And I think the key element is making sure that the event is about about the industry and not about our products, because that's the draw. People are there to learn in our earliest days. So it was a very random, weird first principle guess, like let's do an event, but it ended up paying off because we're like, okay, there's a hunger here around community, there's a hunger here around learning. How can we help feed that as marketers?
So how do you build community around software?
Yeah. I think that's the piece that is so exciting because our answer in software, our like bias or our first knee-jerk reaction is to say, well, we're product-driven. Like it's all about the product, and that's true. Like product is, it's not a SaaS business unless there's a product. But we've sort of forgotten that there's like human beings on the other side of that login, on the other side of that PO signature, and these are people that have families and have desires and needs, and we're all on this quest to sort of do better at work and get promoted and all of these types of things. And so that sounds maybe like emotional fluff of like a marketer, but like quite honestly, purchasing decisions are made emotionally. People don't buy what we do, they buy why we do it, right? This is the Simon Sinek famous quote, and I think there's a lot of truth there. So I think the sort of counterintuitive response would be, especially in software, if you want to differentiate your brand, don't just build a great product. Build a great product, for sure. But beyond that, speak to the the community, the human beings on the other end of your market who are actually trying to solve problems, and your product is a big part of that. But the other part is your content and your events and all of these things that sort of wrap around your products to help folks get better at the jobs that they're trying to solve ultimately. And it's one of those weird things that's good for the community kind of a thing, because like, here we are all today, like trying to learn. But it's good for the business. It's actually, it's one of those weird things, I think, that, is both sort of the noble thing to do, but also the profitable thing to do.
Really building that tribe around the solution.
Yeah.
So they find their people.
Yeah, totally.
Very, very cool. So you're dropped right into the middle of a SaaS company today.
Yep.
What do you do to start marketing and start driving demand as we're going into some crazy financial times?
Yeah, actually, Allison's answer is spot on. But I think understanding your audience, as we sort of covered, is first, right? Like, okay, so what exactly is the problem that our persona is trying to solve today? And then I think the weird filter with this year in particular is it can't be this sort of like, super altruistic, noble thing. Like, it can be over time, but right now, just to like break through the noise and be considered, every marketer or every kind of buyer is being tasked to do more with less. That's kind of the quote. Efficient growth is sort of like the name of the game right now. So I think step one is understanding the buyer. Two is maybe looking at the positioning and the messaging and saying, okay, are we being too pie in the sky here, or can we very much be relevant, in the kind of economic reality that we're launching into? And then third, from a team perspective, whether it's in person, whether it's with contractors or agencies or partners, I have the conviction that content is sort of the oxygen of the marketing flywheel. Like, without content, marketing doesn't happen. It's how we deliver our message out to the market. It's how we kind of drive that engagement. So I think content is an important role. Demand, and unless you're getting the distribution on that content, it's ultimately it's not going to be seen. And then what was the last one? Because I agreed with it. Product marketing, of course. Like the other risk, of course, is like you hear a talk like this, and you're like, it's all about like thought leadership and conferences. But if that doesn't translate to the product value, then then you are a media company, frankly. Like, you're not a software business at the end of the day. So I think it's important to kind of have product marketing then convert all of that.
So if you get a double spend in marketing, double spend in sales, where do you put it?
Ooh. This year?
Yes.
Good question. I think that's a really good question. I think that marketing spend has to be really considered this year. I think the idea of us being able to like do more with less is real. I think you can do a lot of damage in marketing without. So we have, we've been in market for about 6 months, not with a product, but just kind of building our audience, and we've spent $0 on paid. We spent probably, outside of the salary of one marketer, $50,000 total, like something along those lines. So maybe counterintuitive, but I'd probably put it in sales like this year. Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah, I think I'd probably like. But that doesn't mean that the team that you have can't deliver, in a sort of creative way to feed the sales team. But this year is all about growth. And if you have sales, the sort of like dollar in, dollar out type of at least aspiration for a sales team of saying, okay, if I hire one more rep, get them productive, we can then kind of achieve the growth goals that we're going for. I'd probably put it in sales.
Very cool. Where can we learn more about you and about Audience Plus online?
Yeah, so if you go to audienceplus.com, you can subscribe there. We've got a ton of content that we're producing, newsletters. It's all free, virtual events, just to kind of have this discussion with kind of the question we opened with: how can you build an audience in an efficient way, and then what are the kind of different kind of changing tactics around owned media specifically that are going to help kind of marketing drive forward.
Awesome. Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah, thank you so much.